The Atomic Real Estate Show, bringing you the real estate of real estate. Brought to you by Danny Bennett Productions in partnership with Direct Subs.
This episode is sponsored by Downtown Mechanical. At Downtown Mechanical, we care for your air. We are your quality cooling and heating solution in South Jersey, Philadelphia, and the surrounding areas. We cover all types of commercial and residential HVAC needs. When planning your next heating and cooling install or maintenance, rely on a company that offers unparalleled knowledge, respect for your time and budget, and quality craftsmanship. At Downtown Mechanical, it is our mission to serve you with the extensive knowledge and expertise we have gained in our industry while continually offering the finest service. You can reach them at www.downtownmechanicalllc.com, 215-617-3768, on Instagram at downtown_mechanical.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Atomic Real Estate Show. And I know what you're thinking. You're not Ryan Dolan. So I'm sitting in for Ryan today. He had somewhere else to be. Luckily, I got my sidekick here, the venerable Nick Cessna. Nick, how you doing?
Pretty good.
Maybe you want to introduce our guest
so
I don't mess up his last name?
Yeah, our guest today is Brian Corcodilos from DesignBlendz. I've known Brian now for, God, it's got to be close to 10 years.
Close. I was thinking 9 years.
Yeah.
I was thinking 9, but 10. We'll just round it up.
It ended, I think, how did we meet? I think it was probably just like social media, and it was like, hey, we're in the same type of like businesses. You were investing in real estate, and your business was in the, you were in like not even the crawl stage at the point. I think you were like kind of like starting to walk at that point in business.
We had just moved out of our row home in Manioc at the time into like our first office.
Yeah, and then you had introduced me to the guys over at Legacy Capital.
Yeah,
because I was like kind of bootstrapping everything, funding everything myself, doing stuff with big banks, and you were like, hey, I think you might want to look into this hard money thing. And I was like, what the fuck is hard money? Yeah. Right? You know what I mean? And I was like, what the fuck
sounds
that?
difficult.
Yeah, I was like,
it sounds hard.
That?
Yeah.
And then, you were just like, yeah, these dudes are cool. Mm-hmm. And they were in an office space like right across from you. I went there and met them guys and ended up doing a shitload of business. I think you can categorize that as a shitload of business we did together.
Well, when you can take $100 and split it across 10 projects versus $100 on one project, it starts to change what you're able to do.
Yeah, and what I've always respected about you is you think outside of the box. You think differently. I always like to surround myself with people who think differently than I do. Right, and you don't sugarcoat nothing. You don't pull no punches. I always respect that. Like I'm a very like non-emotional. You ain't gonna hurt my fucking feelings type thing. And you're like very matter of fact, which is cool to see. It actually surprised me, like being in your field. You're an architect by trade, and then you super techie, like super tech brain, but you're not like the tech nerd model. Like you're like a.
I didn't get jammed in lockers.
Yeah. You're like a fucking normal dude. I could see you telling somebody to go fuck themselves, but at the same time, like you run this big fucking business now, and you live in this, white collar world. So it's pretty cool, and you also do stunt doubles for the Giants head coach,
Brian Dable. Dude, when that trade happened, I must have got 15 text messages. They're like, yo, you're the coach of the Giants now.
But I've always respected that about you. I've always had, which I appreciate, I've always had you as a resource that I can reach out to. Hey, Brian, what do you think about this? And you're like, and I'm like, man, I never thought about that. And that's why me and CJ became good friends, because he thinks completely different than me, thinks completely different than you. It's just, and I think that's a great thing, great networking. And, what is your business doing now? Because I haven't really talked about your business with you in a while. I mean, I see it on social media, but like where are you at now from where you were years ago?
It's wild. So with DesignBlendz, what's funny is when I talk to clients, they're like, Brian, like it was like, you don't want me touching your project anymore, right?
Yeah.
So as CEO now, I have three main focuses on a daily basis. It's people, it's culture, and it's strategy / vision, right? And when I can be in those roles majority of the day, great things happen, right? It's connecting dots. It's you see something in the front lines. You're like, well, if we zig it this way, this will happen, and then making sure that the team I'm building can execute that vision, right? And so when I have full control of building the team. I have full control of where the vision's heading, and then I can maintain an amazing office environment, just a fun culture for people of any age to work in now. It's exciting. We recently, so we're at 34 people full time, a combination of architects, interior designers, visualization designers, project managers, administrative staff, right? Anything across the board. And we're working in almost every market sector that you can do in architecture. What I tell people now is the only thing we won't design in my office is a hospital. We're doing, GoPuff as a client. We're working with the city of Philadelphia to relay out their law offices. 350 lawyers, Sherelle said, are coming back to work. They're coming back to work. We have an on-call contract. We're working the police headquarters building downtown. We're working on a firehouse, and we're doing a majority of the multifamily units in the city. Last year, we were responsible for 1 out of every 5 permitted units in the city of Philadelphia. Comes out of my office.
Wow.
I've been seeing the city.
Impressive.
Yeah.
The city's doing a lot of renovations on their buildings. And I think that has to do with Philadelphia being such an old city.
Correct.
And the buildings have been just in disarray for a long time.
Yep.
A lot of Band-Aids on bullet wounds for many years. And I think this newer administration is like, wait a minute. So we're hemorrhaging money fixing stuff.
Yeah. So part of also what happened this year for me, we acquired another architecture firm in the city, and the reason we did that was foundational, right? I traditionally, about 80% of my work was in the multifamily residential space, but I acquired a firm that specifically is government, municipal, high-end corporate interior. So my new clientele is City of Philadelphia, Bordentown, New Jersey, Pico, and Exelon, right? So my clientele has shifted on that front, which has now put us in conversations like the city of Philadelphia is a client. We're helping them look at all of their assets and say, hey, you have this already. How can we save money? You don't need to rebuild something new. You can repurpose this.
Yes.
You can or
sell off some buildings.
Or sell off, right? So there's
like the 6th and the 9th district. I heard they just merged. They're moving them over into the police administration building. And then like the 6th district building is like right there off of Vine Street, right at the start of Chinatown. Like that building, if the city owns that's got to be worth millions, that soil.
And the other thing too, Sherelle came out with a very aggressive goal of let's make 10,000 affordable units to build, right? So you have the city of Philadelphia owns more land than any other city in the nation. City of Philadelphia has the most amount of property available for use. They have swatches of land, they have buildings, as you mentioned. So our city is filled with assets to be able to put multifamily affordable housing into. Now you peel back the onion, you're like, well, how do we get that to actually happen?
Yeah.
And that's been the challenge. There's been years where the city has only done a couple hundred units. Shit, I have a client that'll do a couple hundred units a couple times a year.
Sure.
But they not necessarily will be affordable housing. It could be mostly market rate or some sort of subsidized, through like, an 80% AMI with affordability aspect. But it's only a small fraction of that 800 units that client might do that year.
Sure.
So right now there's I think Sherelle has assembled a decent team to help bring the right people into conversation, right? Like, I have clients that are capable of doing thousands of units a year in the city, but they'll do it if you incentivize them to do it for affordability. So I think it's a combination of the private and public sector coming together to actually make that a reality. And it's getting better, but we're still a far ways away from that 10,000
There's still
dream.
Bureaucracy and
zoning
government
laws
bullshit.
changing every week. It's getting harder and harder. The city of Philadelphia is working against itself right now for affordability, and it sucks to say, but right now it's not easy to build affordable housing here for a plethora of reasons.
I mean,
Wow.
what is affordable housing? You know what I mean? Like it's so. How can it be affordable when the materials are so friggin' high?
Yeah,
it's not cheap to just build a home. Right
Look,
now.
technically, what is it defined as? 80% or
So based on one of the things that the city's done with zoning in certain instances, they'll allow you to get either height bonuses, density bonuses if you promise to secure rent control for a portion of your building. So it could be like 25. We'll let you add an extra 25% units if you guarantee that these 10 units will stay in a rent space of 80% area median income, meaning like if whatever the area median income for Philly is, you take 80% of that and then you figure out what they could pay in rent. You have to allow your units to rent for that amount. Sure. The problem is they make you put a moratorium on your building for 50 years for those units.
Is it 50?
So by the time your kids are dead, you'll be able to sell that, right? So
isn't that the problem what New York had? Like
Yes.
there's still those like old apartments around where
So
some old lady passed it down and they're only spending a certain amount of money in rent, so
but
super
the
cheap.
problem that the public side sees, right, the government, right, they don't understand that the developers really aren't their own bosses, right? The boss is actually the bank.
Yeah.
So when the bank is looking at these deals to underwrite them, and they see a moratorium of 50 years on the building for these certain units, like especially right now with the interest rates and costs, as you mentioned, it could be the deal doesn't work, even if you got the building or land for free. And that's the challenge that we're facing right now in the affordability aspect. There's instances where I literally see clients, if I got this land for $0 in this area, I can't actually make the project work.
Sure.
So you also look, the city has given lots, well, not given away, but they're putting lots up for $1 or whatever, like you can buy it, and then you have to sell it for a certain amount of money. Some of the people I know doing that product are doing it as tax write-offs so they can do their bigger projects.
They're losing money.
They're losing money.
It's a
They're
Deliberately,
It's a purposeful
it's a
loss.
purposeful loss. It's a great thing because they can deal with the loss to offset the gains elsewhere, but they're doing it as a means to lose, which isn't helping the masses. Not everyone can do something to lose on purpose. That's wealthy individuals that are operating at a high level of operation. So,
well, those super high level people with all the money are always going to find gray areas and loopholes to benefit themselves. And like, I can't fault them. They're intelligent. But the rules are in place.
The rules are in place, but at the same time, look, let's figure out a way to incentivize the masses to build affordable housing.
Yeah.
But the only people that are really involved in it are using it either to break even as a good faith so they can do it here and smile to go do this, or they're writing it off to offset gains elsewhere. And that's the challenge. So the way the current system's set up, it doesn't allow for the masses to get involved to help solve this affordability crisis.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, you see a lot of these apartment buildings, up and down Ridge Avenue, and they'll need a certain amount of them to be basically government subsidized rents, like Section 8 rentals, and a lot of people bitch about that. I don't want Section 8 around here. And then the builders are like, man, some of them are like, you know what? I don't want the issues that come along with some Section 8 stuff. And they're like, you know what? I'm not going to do it. And then other ones are like, nah, you know what? I'm going to do it because I can now get this many more units in.
You'd be surprised. Section 8 isn't the traditional what you'd see in these areas of Brooklyn.
It's not like
or
it
whatever.
used to be.
It is. It could be a young college graduate that just doesn't make more than $40,000 a year.
That's interesting.
Right? Yeah. So people don't understand that the Section 8 has, it's got a bad stigma attached to it. It really should
people take advantage of the system, and they have been for years.
I mean,
and
they
that's
still
part of
take
the problem.
advantage.
They still, yeah.
Look,
absolutely.
I imagine, there's the easy way to take advantage of the system right now. Right? If you're on affordability, you go lose your job for a month, redo your paperwork, and get your job back. Like, it's that simple to break that system. That's what people do.
Yeah.
I've clients that specifically just do a majority of Section 8 stuff. And it's like, they're like, these people abuse the system. There's nothing I can do. Like, it's like they're just providing the housing for the government. It's the government's job to vet these people, to put them on. But, it's crazy.
And the city, since COVID happened, basically, it almost vilified the landlord. Mm-hmm. It was always Philadelphia's always been a very heavy, it's for the tenant type city. But once COVID happened, it was really against the landlord. And
yes.
I got out of all of my lower income area stuff because I was just like, you know what? It's just a nonstop headache.
Yeah,
it's just a nonstop headache, and I just didn't want to do it anymore.
I don't have a lot of residential holdings in the city, and it's for that exact reason, because it's so anti-landlord friendly here in the city that, I have horror stories of clients that haven't been able to get people out of their properties for almost 2 years.
Yes.
Right? So, you still got to pay your Philly taxes. You still got to pay your federal that they're raising
all the time. Yeah. And then they were hitting the area that I was in.
So,
I was in
so you won't allow the landlord to get somebody out in a month but you make them still continue to pay their tax on their property. You know, it's a double standard. It's not right. So I personally don't invest in residential in the city. I like commercial. That's the realm I stick in. I love helping other entrepreneurs get their businesses started, and like that's the realm I will stay in the city and continue to grow that because it's been so good for me in that regard. But the residential game, it needs a whole revamp.
There's also downfalls to commercial as well, where not so much like the commercial stuff like down on Main Street, like you have like where it's office space and it's not. I'm talking more so like stores. Like say you have a place and it's a storefront. Well, you could be making really good money on a triple net lease for 5 years, right? Yep. And then all of a sudden, hey, that store's going bankrupt. They're like moving out, and now you have a vacant place for 3 years. Now you're like, oh, it's not that.
Yeah,
good.
It's a different animal.
It's not. You know what I mean? Like it's just a different game.
Yeah,
it's a different game.
And as you mentioned, you know, my commercial stuff, I like the small mom and pop, right? I like the Pilates studio that I put in a small suite, and then she came back to me 6 months later, and was like, Brian, I need more space because my business. I need more Pilates machines. Do you have any other space in the building? I'm like, actually, I have someone moving out in a month over here. Let's slide you over here, right? Like those are, for me, that's way more rewarding than trying to battle, the politics and jurisdictions at hand that are going to prevent me from doing business.
Well, that also, you relate to those people too, because I remember when you started in a small office and then like a year later I come back and you own, but you're renting like 90% of the fucking building. And I was like, Brian, when you buying your own fucking building, dude? Like, this is outrageous, dude. Like, you've kicked everybody out. You're just like, oh, they're leaving, I'll rent their space. And you're just expanding and expanding.
In my lease, I had, you're betting on yourself, but in my lease, I have a first right of refusal for the landlord has to notify me of any space becoming available before he can go to market with it. It's in my lease.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like, oh, hey, Brian, I have another 400 square feet across the hall. You want it? Yeah, it'll be our material library for the next few months until we figure out.
Because you knew you were growing.
Yeah, of course.
You knew you were growing.
Yeah, I mean, the city's smart. Yeah, the city's grown on the residential side, and we're obviously a big part of that because we've helped developers all around the city, from the city, but a lot of investors that have come to the town to put money in. But I just, I have a concern right now with what some of the people are telling me about what it feels like to put $1 million at risk here in the city. And not to say that people are leaving in a mass exodus. They used to put 80% of their pile of chips here. They're dropping it below 50% in most instances. Like,
where are you seeing them going? Different states?
Words like Camden, Norristown,
the suburbs,
Bluebell,
the surrounding suburbs,
North Jersey, North Carolina, Delaware, right? Places where, like, and again, I always, going back for a second to just like a little off topic, the whole tax abatement situation. The city got rid of it for the new construction stuff.
Stupid.
But again, it was vilifying the landlord / developer. It has nothing to do with the landlord and developer. It has everything to do with the end user that's going to be buying that home and staying in the city. The whole marketing campaign, whoever was in charge of that, if there even was somebody in charge of it, should have lost their job and never gotten another job, because developers will just go elsewhere. That's the whole thing about this. People think that developers need Philadelphia. They're in Philadelphia because there's opportunities to grow and improve the city.
Philadelphia needs developers.
The moment those opportunities stop, these developers are like, oh man, I really like Philly. I like the Sixers. I like the culture here, but like I can't take money and make money here anymore. There's no business to be had. And the moment that starts happening, I start getting worried as someone that sees in the trenches that these developers are used to be, back even 5 years ago, it was like, oh yeah, buy this, boom, like we can move, like things underwrite, things make sense. The city is open. Areas of the city are open to growing and improving and adding a street presence, adding light to areas that didn't have light before. And those opportunities are diminishing here because of zoning and politics. And it sucks to say. It's just slowing down.
It actually helped a lot of areas, like, people say like gentrification and all that stuff, but it helped a lot of areas that were very blighted with crime, and it took the crime rate down.
Look at Northern Liberties.
Tremendously. Look at Brewerytown.
Yeah.
It took like a dilapidated space that nobody was doing anything with, that crack just destroyed, and it basically built it back up.
Yeah. To me, the whole method, it's big. Like Tony Robbins, I love Tony Robbins. I've been to his one of his events, but it's what people need to realize is you get what you're okay with. And it's all about raising your standard in everything in life, right? If you can tolerate it, you deserve it, right? And that's what it comes down to. So if you can tolerate this area of the city just being trash littered with needles, good, that's what you're going to get, right? So you have to raise your standard in everything you do in life. And the way we live in this city, we all need to think, how do we want to live?
Yeah.
Do we want to walk our kids outside and let them play on grass that's high, overgrown, and in the streets
With trash.
And littered? Or do we want to set a standard that's not okay here?
Sure.
And that's the problem. The standard of the city has not been raised. It's in certain areas it has, but it hasn't been consistent through politics and everyone agreeing that this is the standard we need to maintain, and here's how we're all going to come together to do that.
How do we fix that?
Leadership. You don't have what I believe the problem in Philly. Look, because I work in other cities, you have the way the council is set up, right? We really have like 13 mayors.
Yeah.
Right? Like, people don't realize that. You have 5th district, all these different districts have different council members with their own prerogatives, with their own ideas.
Sure.
Right? So you have, look, there's good to that too. Like, I love going down to the fucking Italian market. Like, that's a whole different vibe than going up to Northern Liberties or going to Brewery Town or going to Manioc, right? Like, it keeps the culture, but what isn't consistent is the standards across the board, at least in my opinion. And you have different council, like, in this area of Strawberry Mansion, in this square block, let's put a zoning memorandum that you can't build above 28 feet, right? So you're somebody that wants to move to Philadelphia, buy a home, and put a 3rd-story addition on your house so you can raise a family. After you buy the home, you call a company called DesignBlendz and say, hey, DesignBlendz, I want to add a 3rd-story addition. And I look at where the house is located on the block and say, yeah, it's going to be a 16-month variance process. And the homeowner goes, what do you mean? 3 blocks over, they have 3-story additions. And I said, I'm sorry. This is council member prerogative at work. And that's a real story that happened.
Yeah.
And that's real issues that plague our city.
And why did that happen? That specific thing happened because certain neighbors were complaining that people had roof decks.
Yeah.
I don't want them seeing into my yard. I don't want to see in here. I don't like the way this looks. They're complaining to their council person, right? Mm-hmm. And their council person's like, you know what? I'm going to do something about this.
Sure.
And they end up fucking biting their nose off to spite their face because of complaints that really are silly. And it's the same thing with the tax abatement. Going back to the tax abatement. How many meetings have you been to where I've seen 1,000 times, where they're talking about the development, new construction project, and people are, so it's always like the same old people that come to the meetings, and they're like, what about the tax abatement? They're only going to be paying this amount of taxes, and I live next door and I'm paying this. And it's like, lady, listen, what's going to happen, though, is you probably have lived there for 50 years, right? Your family probably doesn't have much money. Now your house is going to be worth triple. And now guess what? Your family is now taken care of. You never did anything financially to take care of them. Now, because you got developed next door to you, now your dependents and your family has $300,000 when you die in equity on that fucking house that you would have never had. And then they complain about the tax payment because it's not fair that I'm paying this and they're not paying this. Yeah. But yeah, in 10 years, it balloons, and then they're going to be triple taxes of yours, and yours isn't going up because yours is in a new construction, and they don't get that. And the new development next door, they're going to clean up that old shitty fucking lot that was there, the old houses that are there. I know, like a lot of developers that are really good, and I would say 90% of the new construction developers always clean up the site, always clean up trash. They're out there sweeping. The guys who are like running the projects are out there sweeping up, clean up, talking to neighbors, this and that. And then they're like, once the construction starts, they're like, oh, this wasn't that bad. I really liked it. They bought me car washes, this and that. Yeah, because we know that it's an inconvenience to you, and we're going to be here.
But it's worth it.
Yeah,
in the end,
you just deal with a little bit of fucking noise for 3 to 6 months, and guess what? You're just getting money injected into your pocket. You don't even realize it.
Yeah. Well, again, it also, you peel back the onion, it comes down to our educational system here in the United States.
Yeah.
When was the last? What class did you have where they taught you how to balance a checkbook?
No.
What class did you have where they taught you how to file your taxes?
Or equity.
What class where they taught you
what
a profit and loss statement was, right? It comes down to how we educate our society. And yeah, can you blame Sheila for being angry and not understanding what equity means? No, you can't.
No.
Because she's never, I see it in my own family. Like, you don't, If you don't have that education, you don't learn, understand how money works, you can't, you can't, you have to just like nod your head and be like, oh, I understand these wealthy, developers know the long term what they're doing is good for the areas, for the neighbors, for people that they're developing around. But the hard part is, the challenge is the other side, where it's just a lack of education and understanding of what it's actually doing economically for the city as a whole, right? What sucks is, COVID sent everybody home. What happens to Sally's cheesesteak corner spot? It's gone, right? Everyone's fighting. You hear these city employees fighting. They don't want to come downtown. You know why Sherelle's bringing them back? Because our fucking retail is destroyed in Center City right now. It's destroyed. As someone else is looking for office space because they're running out, and I've been looking at just walking into buildings downtown, and floors, I'm talking multi-floors of these towers are just vacant, dust on keyboards that were just left and people never came back to.
Now, do you think that with the difficulty and the hoops that are jumped through for new construction, the cost of material to get things out of the ground, when is it going to happen where a lot of these office spaces are then adaptive reused into residential space?
It's already happening, but I will tell you, I still think the commercial space is slowly starting to come back.
Okay.
And again, it's because businesses that had billions of dollars of cash reserves are starting to wake up and go, well, we had 10 billion, but why do we only have 8.5 billion now?
Yeah.
They're realizing how inefficient work at home life is.
What Elon Musk said was right.
I mean, look,
that's what they're realizing to a degree.
Dude, when we got shut down, I remember it was like yesterday. Like when we got shut down that day, where the mayor announced, "Oh, we all got to go home, pack up your shit, take your boxes, take your mints in your drawer, and you don't know when the fuck you're coming back to the office." Dude, our productivity as a firm dropped over 30% by sending my team home.
Yeah.
Okay, and I have some very talented individuals and the best team architecture firm in the city that works in my office, like literally the best of the best. They were struggling, right? And it's just, you start to realize like, oh, you're not as effective. Do I think what Sherelle did the 5 days in? I don't agree with that. Because even, me, someone that's like tech forward, understanding, like, I still don't think employees will ever not want that flexibility. So like we're 4 days in and we're Fridays remote. And we also then do summer hours indefinitely. We do 9
Fridays and Mondays.
Well, we do 9-hour days Monday through Thursday and 4 on Friday. And in that 4 hours are remote. I always think that level of flexibility is going to be required. But this whole work remote, work from home, work through Zoom, it's for the birds. Yeah. You cannot build a business that way.
But aren't certain people, I guess it's different round pegs and round holes, and different strokes for different folks. Like some people probably do work better from home. And then certain people aren't as productive in the office because they're very social and they want to go talk to every single person in every cubicle. So it's like certain people are probably like, go home and work.
This is the challenge. And someone that's interviewing, younger staff that's trying to find their next move in the architectural profession. One of the challenges is, how do you grow that staff? And I could be biased because the majority of my businesses require high levels of collaboration, high levels of just thought and clarity. I mean, we're putting up buildings that people are having to live in and experience and walk through. Like, they got to be safe, right? So that collaboration needed to do that, it has to be, right next to each other sometimes. But one of the challenges I hear from people that are unhappy with their current structure is that they're running on a hybrid model. Their peer or manager or so-and-so that they're starting to have to look up to grow and learn from isn't in the office. Right, I have this challenge internally, right? I have some very talented project managers and higher ups that are like, yeah, they could work from the moon. I would know they'd get their shit done. But the problem is, one of my employees that just graduated college, I want her to be able to move up and elevate. And if this person's not there with them,
that's exactly right.
That's the problem. Yeah. So you have this younger generation that's coming out that is eager, is hungry to learn, wants to use technology, wants to grow. But then you have all the experience here where, yeah, of course they can work from home, be remote. And then you threw in this whole injection of COVID where, we can just be all remote. It's not working. Yeah. It's this younger generation isn't getting what they need from this generation through Zoom. It sucks.
So they're not learning the right things or the wrong things to do from the older generation.
It's really the speed at which they're learning it, right? It's one thing if you were a new designer in my office sitting next to Mark Cohen, who's a rock star principal that's built some massive buildings in his lifetime. Him putting a piece of trace paper and working with you right, to figure out details, right? That level of experience and learning is going to be very different than him pulling up a PDF on Zoom, trying to orient, all right, let me magnify it in, let me, right? It's just not the same. You're not practicing it as you should. So firms, at least in my space that were hybrid, are struggling.
I guess you're also seeing the older guys, the more experienced, employees that they're doing their thing. You're relying on them to have these younger architects and stuff helping them, and they're probably like, you know what? Fuck it. They're probably not even telling you, like, fuck it. I don't even need Joe and Sally's help. I'm just going to do it myself, as opposed to even fucking dealing with these young cats. And I'm sure you're seeing that too, where it's like, and that it comes down to
sometimes. But again, it's also the team you create, right? Because the staff. I have staff ranging from their early 20s up into the 70s in my office.
Really,
wow. Everything in between. It's wild, right?
That's great.
It's amazing. Honestly, it's amazing.
That's a testament to you.
Correct. But it's also, how do you get the older staff to work with the younger staff? It's culture. It's right. It's people. It's culture. It's strategy. Right. So if I have a staff that's in this that's not willing to do that, but the secret sauce how I do it, I make sure that the functions of the organization, they have to work together.
Sure. Right.
So like person doing invoicing, early 30s, people having to report to invoicing, right? Like, so, it's by design, inherently they work together. They don't have a choice.
You were, for a while, I don't know if you're still doing it, you were, because you went to Jefferson, and you were going there and basically recruiting a lot of, you were going there to teach and offer your educational education people, but then it was just naturally happening where people were coming to you for jobs. Are you still going to them?
Yeah, look, I got invited last year. I now sit on the CAMBAR College Advisory Committee, which is like, it's where the money's at, right? Like they're making decisions like at a very high level, and I'm the youngest one on that board. I'm grateful to be there just because, again, you see things differently. Look, we've obviously, Jefferson will always be my alma mater. Jefferson, Philly U, right?
I still call it textile.
Right? Yeah, textiles. Always has this place in my heart. We try to hire. We're always at every hiring thing for there. But my organization's expanded. I hire people from Syracuse. I hire people from Penn. I hire people from all over. So it's not just a Philly U crew in my office anymore. As you grow, one school can't give me everybody I need.
I'm sure at this point too, you're established. You're probably not hiring as many, wet behind the ears people. You're probably getting people from other firms jumping ship to come to you. Hey,
yeah, at this point, look, I actually was on the call. We have 4 or 5 recruiting firms we work with, like, to just find us the right. But we're always hiring, by the way. So it's never not that we don't need to hire people. It's just finding the right people. But what I said to them was, look, I need people that essentially can operate on their own and make decisions on their own. That's the hardest thing to find for any business owners, be able to find someone that can make a decision without needing support to make that decision.
That's very hard in a younger generation too.
Well, yeah.
Because I feel like, and I see it with all these travel sports that my kids play and stuff, and these parents just basically wipe the kids' asses for them. And it's like, there's an epidemic of those like iPad kids coming out now and this and that, and it's like everything has been done for them. So it's like, how do you get younger people that are like super individuals?
And it's a great question because it's a challenge. I'm starting to look. I'm 34, right? So I'm not too. But when I hire a 23-year-old out of college, right? They're thinking differently than I was at 23. But it's how we structure. Like again, the hand holding portion. We've just put in really good trainings on, like, if you come to my office, you're going to learn how to do a schematic design set start to finish with our standards, right? Like, so there's the hand holding, there's the expectation, there's the standard to be set.
Sure.
How do you then raise it as the people we're looking for?
They're so like, right? I feel like, this is such a broad statement. It makes me sound old, but I feel like the younger generation, they're so tech forward. Mm-hmm. They're genius. Like, dude, I can hand my 5-year-old a phone that she's never touched, and she knows how to use it. It's wild.
She's jailbreaking it.
Yeah, their brains work differently. But you get an 18-year-old kid that doesn't know how to look you in the eye, shake your hand, and say, "Nice to meet you, sir. My name is Nick." You don't get that. Like, and that I'm still like bothered by that, where like younger kids, like they don't give you a firm handshake, they don't look you in the eye, and it's like, be a fucking man.
So,
like I mean, maybe I'm just old school.
You got to teach them. You got to teach
them. So the last thing I told the recruiter today was exactly that. I said, she's like, do you need someone that's well-rounded? Do you need someone that's specific? And I said, look, I'm looking for people that know how to put, industrial buildings together. I'm looking for people that know how to work for municipalities, right? Education. We're working on stuff at Penn State's campus, right? Like, so I was like, I need people that have specialties. But I said, if you bring me somebody that has high IQ, high people skills, I'll find a spot for them.
Sure. Yeah.
Because that is the challenge.
They're a unicorn.
What we see as the biggest hurdle for people leveling up in my organization, it's not knowing what a sill plate is or how buildings go together, right? That stuff you can teach. It comes down to dealing with adversity and problems, right?
Yeah.
How have I told people to F myself? The amount of shit. If I had $1,000 every person told me to go fuck myself, we would, I'd be on some island retired somewhere, right? Being able to have and deal with those levels of interaction, that's the challenge I see for this new generation coming up. Oh, they offended me. Oh, they talked to me the wrong way. Oh, like you need to understand, it's not how business gets done, right? Knowing how business gets done, like the people I interface with, they could give a fuck how you feel.
Yeah.
Right? They'll crush you if they have an opportunity to. Right? They'll sue you. Like these people operate in a very different way, and that's never going to change because people that think differently than the masses do. They always have since the beginning of time. So that, they think it's all about feeling emotion, checking boxes, making sure. The people that are actually truly making decisions don't give a shit about this because it has nothing to do with moving the needle forward.
Listen, I respect now. I've been so emotionally cold for so many years with my past life and everything that I did. Had to be fucking very turned off. My brain had to be turned off. And the human brain turns off during traumas, and it does things to cope with it. And when you're in it, that you don't know that's happening. And now that I'm older, I'm out of that. I'm seeing the emotions of things, and now I'm like, I go back to incidents that happened. I'll tell somebody about it, and I'm like, what is this emotion that I'm feeling? Right? I'm more in touch with it. And I think that actually happened once I had children, and especially once I had daughters. But I respect the fact that people are in touch with their emotions and they're in touch with mental health and all that stuff. And I like the conversation that people are talking about, hey, mental health is a thing you need to focus on. I get that, right? I respect that. But I also know that there's a fucking time and place for it. And in certain times of business, emotions don't mean a fucking thing to me. Like they're shut off. And I think that's what we're talking about right there. Like there's this disconnect, and like they can hurt their feelings. Like fuck your feelings. Fuck your feelings. Like in business at that point, we can think about it later and we can have a conversation with it later. Let's get to the finish line. Let's get our task done. You know what I mean?
And the biggest thing, right, back to scale, we were talking Danny here, right? Like, he's, people want him to edit the video, right?
Sure.
I want other people in my office to be able to talk to my clientele, right? But there's still clients that like I have to handle.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like I need to find individuals that can have high IQ, high people skills to be able to start passing off clients to be able to deal with their antics, right? Or whatever makes them tick differently, right? And again, understanding who my team is and who that person is, being able to marry those people together, it's a challenge as you scale. But the more people I have that can have fluid conversations and just solve issues and diffuse things before they become problems, that's what allows companies to grow. It's the people still. AI is not going to fix that anytime soon.
Yeah. Now, my brother's in the tech industry, and he has been for years. My brother's, I'm 41. He's 51, right? And he started when it was like the green typing on screens, right? I remember my dad saved up money, bought him like an old IBM, like when they were new, like way back in the day, right? And my dad came home from work, he had it apart. That's how my brother works, right? My dad's like, what the fuck? He's got it apart. He puts it back together. But if you look at my brother, he's 6'3", 300 pounds, looks like a longshoreman, right? And he has the ability to, because he was raised such blue collar on job sites with my dad, but he's so intelligent. He was tested as a kid. He tested as a genius, and he is so fucking smart. He speaks both languages, right? So he speaks fluent computer nerd.
Yep.
And then he goes out, like clients love him, and these big CEOs of companies that are hiring his company, like they love him because he can take them out to the bar. He can take them to Flyers games, Sixers games, strip clubs, and they're like, holy shit, you're a normal fucking dude. They've never experienced that, right? But my brother was telling me that he has a lot of guys work for him, have multiple degrees and stuff. And my brother's like, dude, some of these dudes are on the spectrum. Like I can't have them speak to clients because they are on the spectrum, but they are so fucking good at their job. Yeah. They're so good at tech, but their people skills are horrendous. But there's a place for them, and he plugs them into places where they don't need to speak to people. They're the best technicians you could ever fucking encounter.
Literally, I mean, some of the regrets I look back, I've had people in wrong places before, right? I've had a person that's like that on the spectrum necessarily, but like really good, really tech at putting buildings together, probably better than anybody I know. But like I had him talking to clients he shouldn't have been.
Yes.
Because he didn't have the people skills to deal with that client. But what always kept it going was like, well, he's really fucking good. He knows how buildings go together. But the long-term outlook of like that client's satisfaction still wasn't there. Even though I had the best person in the city working on the multifamily buildings, the opposite side, the clients interacting, that experience was not good. So it outweighed the fact that literally we had the best person that you could find in the city of Philadelphia to put your building together on paper. But they couldn't have the conversation, but they weighed this way every time. It's the human interaction outweighed the skill and what the deliverable was.
Sure.
So like,
there's positions for everybody though.
Yeah,
you know?
100%.
Like, the best athlete might be the worst teammate, right?
Of course.
And then like goalies, I'm a big hockey guy. So goalies, when I grew up, goalies were whack jobs.
Yeah.
But like they would talk to themselves. Like same with pitchers. Like they talk to themselves. They're like so, and it's just you stay away from them during game time and your games. They're just weird fucking dudes. But they're like, okay, do you want to put a cage on and do you want to go sit there in front of a 105-mile-an-hour slap shot? Nah, let the crazy dude do it then. You know what I mean? So it's like there's positions for everybody.
Yeah.
You know? And you got, I mean, finding the right position for the right person. That's the hardest thing in business, I think.
Absolutely.
And being able to see that, and where some people might say like, this guy or girl is like really, just fucking up in this position. The good leaders are like,
no, it's my fault every time.
Where could I put them?
It's always your
where
fault,
right?
right?
Where could I train them properly?
That's the challenge, right? You could always look back and blame the employee. It has nothing to do with the employee. No.
Yeah.
It's your fault
Yeah.
that they're in the wrong spot or shouldn't be. Either there is a spot for them. The hardest part is that most leaders get wrong because a lot of people think that they are leaders, right? They might be the leader of the company, the president, whatever. But the problem is what happens long term is that if you're not a visionary and see where you're going, and then you look at your employee and see how that employee could either come along for the ride or not, that's where the magic actually happens, right? So as I'm interviewing new hires, right, I'm trying to understand what their 5-year picture looks like because I know what mine's already going to be, or at least close to it. Where does this person, are they going to sit in the same role in 5 years? Or how can they provide value long-term in 5 years? And how can I provide value back to them for those 5 years? Do they align? That's the secret sauce for scaling an organization. Has nothing to do with just making sure they're in a function. Great, that's going to work. But is that going to work for the vision of the organization?
What do you do to retain people where you prevent them from starting their own thing, or not prevent them because I doubt you're going to prevent anybody from doing that, but where you create the environment that they want to stay and then they want to be a part of this and they want to grow with it? Like, what are the things that you're doing to have that culture? Like, what are things that you're doing?
Great question. It's a secret sauce. But my job as CEO, right, is not to work on the projects, even though sometimes they let me have a say on what color the brick should be.
They don't want you working on it. Your guys don't want you working on a project.
They don't want me
either.
touching shit.
Yeah.
But my job as CEO is to understand and know every single thing I can about every one of my employees. I want to know what their favorite fucking color is. I want to know what their wives do or husbands do. I want to know what are they trying to buy a house. I want to know as much as possible about them because my skill set is helping people get to that next dot. So if I know that Sean in my company is trying to buy a house, but here's his financial situation at XYZ, I can help get him to buying his first house. But in order to do that, if I don't care, Sean's going to leave at the first opportunity that someone goes, hey, Sean, here's an extra $5,000.
Sure.
But if he knows that I can see through that, and I go, Sean, it's not about $5,000 a year. That's not going to help you buy a house. It's about how we look at your habits and how we change things. And like, do you want to work extra time? I have other side gigs you can help me with. You want to work at my haunted house, right? It's understanding pure empathy for what your employees want. That's what keeps them. That's the secret.
How do you achieve that?
So there was a thing Rockefeller did. I don't know if you ever heard of this. So Rockefeller, when he was building all his businesses, used to keep notes on everybody he met. And he used to do it with the Avery Index system, where he would be like, his assistant, I'm meeting with so-and-so. She would pull out the fucking 3x5 card and hand it to him. On that card had husbands, wives, kids, birthdays, this, X, Y, and Z, and knows everything about it. So, oh, hey, Larry, yeah, how's Sheila doing? Good? Yeah, the kid's still playing softball? Da-da-da.
I'm going to take a guess here, and knowing how your brain works a little bit, you have digitized that type of system, and you have like a digital record of things, and you can pull it up, boom, yep, and you know it.
Not for everybody, but my closest sphere, absolutely.
Yeah.
That allows me to keep moving so I don't forget, because I deal with hundreds of people a week.
You're a big tech forward guy. Mm-hmm. And I remember when the renderings were first starting and there's people walking by in the renderings of new construction, this and that, and you were doing all that stuff, and I was like, man, this is fucking wild. And like then like you'd be doing something, I'm like, that's fucking so far fetched. And then it's 2-3 years later, it's common practice. You seem to be ahead of the curve, like on a lot of things. Like you're and I'm sure there's things that you've tried that didn't take and that have failed, but you're educating yourself about them, and you stay ahead. I like that, man. That's pretty cool. The shit that you do, like I remember sending you something on Instagram the one day, like, yo, Brian, check this out, because I thought it was cool. It was a robot that went around and it printed everything about the new construction stuff. Yeah. And you're like, yeah, I know about that. And I'm like, I know you fucking do, but I just thought it was cool. And
it's in my digital library somewhere of precedents and things to just keep eyes on. But look, but again, you know, it's what I'm talking about isn't uncommon, right? Oh, you have a review every year with your employee. You know, once a year you have a file with what they want, what they achieve. What I'm telling you as a business owner, do it every day. You shouldn't be a once a year. Yeah, you might have a formal sit down. We have formal sit downs twice a year with all my employees, but like have like interactions every day and take note of certain things. Like you should, like if an employee in your office is getting married, what like I know Jason in my office is getting married in April. Like I need to know those things.
You
like,
wouldn't know that fully remote too.
Yeah,
back to that whole
like,
point. That's just another intangible.
Those are the things that keep employees. Yeah. I actually give a shit. Like as a leader, like I fucking care more about my employees than me. Because if I care about them first, the results of me second are much easier. But if I focus on me first, I'm always going to be in this constant state of just, who's next? Who can I find? Shit, this guy left or this girl left. Yeah. Fuck, you know, my admin left because I'm a dick, right? Like, you know, it's you want to focus on them first, and when you realize that that's actually the secret sauce in business, everything else falls into place.
Now, like the military and tactical world, it's very like pre-plan, and then you execute, and then it's after action reviews. Like you're constantly doing AARs, and you are reviewing yourself, you're reviewing your peers. How can we make this better? Are you guys doing that as well, where you're doing after action reviews, like, hey, I think we could have did this better, or I think we could have did that better? Like, does that create a good culture in the office to do stuff like that? So
specifically for projects here and there, like large projects we get through and we close out, like, all right, let's sit down, let's talk through what did we make, what did we spend, what were the issues,
what do we fuck up?
Yeah, we always mess up. It's how do you make it not mess up the second time or third time.
And now do you create a culture of like self-evaluation, team evaluation, peer evaluation?
And again, back to like building the business, right? It's one of the things that matters most for me, obviously the people, culture, but they gotta do the core value test. So, you know, people say, oh, we have values as a company. All right, what are your values? Let's talk about it. One of our core values is never settle. And what does that mean? Okay, no matter what we do in our organization, we're always going to find a way to do it better, right? We might have put out the best, like we got a call from a municipality in Jersey that said, hey, we had another municipality see your bid set go out, and they called us because they wanted an introduction. They said it was the best drawing bid set they had ever seen. We're like, wow. But my team's mentality is, it's not good enough. How do we make it even better? How do we enhance this? How can we get it done quicker? How can we increase the quality of these details, right? So you have to have the core values have to filter everybody in the organization too. So that's also, you layer in that level of lettuce on the sandwich, right? Yeah, you have to put them through that before you can even see if they'd make a good manager.
Now, what did your parents do? if you don't mind talking about that.
Yeah, so my dad, unfortunately, is no longer with me, but my dad grew up in the restaurant industry, worked for my grandfather for a number of years in his diner. He owned his own deli, had catering, so it was always in the restaurant side of things. So the grit, my grandfather was an entrepreneur.
Long hours.
Like that's honestly one of the reasons I didn't want to go work in the restaurant industry. I wanted to go to architecture school was so I could design restaurants. So that was my trajectory that way. It's like, oh shit, my grandfather works 7 days a week. I don't want to do that. And then on my mother's side, she went to college. She went to Widener, degree in chemical engineering and minor mathematics. First job she came out of college, worked for the Department of Defense doing the cabling system that catches the airplanes on the aircraft carriers. She worked on that.
Wow. That's really cool.
That's really cool.
So there's that side, and then my dad's side, the grit. So I have a combination of both.
You have siblings?
I'm only child.
Really?
Yeah. So my dad wasn't too much around the picture when my family split. Pretty much my mother raised me. But she worked long hours, so I stayed on that realm. Played a lot of video games growing up, played them professionally, but then turned that passion into like the virtual world, and that was really my trajectory.
So your mom was like, back then, like that's a work on projects like that. Like, so she was probably pretty tech forward, especially for a woman.
My mother had, so when I was growing up, and again, you just look back at things, you're like, certain things start clicking. Like my mother was in the room with Pfizer during COVID, right? It gives you a sense of what she does today.
Wow.
Right? Working for a big pharma company.
Very intelligent woman.
Tracking adverse events to the FDA type stuff. So you see where she started and where she's at. You can read between the lines. The other thing, when we were growing up, she owned her own business. She had a consulting company, server infrastructure for different pharmaceutical companies, things like that. But when I was younger, I had what was known as the T1 line. I don't know if you know what T1 was. I'm talking like early 2000s. Her company used to pay $1,000 a month to have this T1 line.
Fast internet, right?
It was the fastest internet at the time. Now T1 is like standard practice.
You were kicking
ass.
I'm
playing
games,
video
right?
games, and like I am connecting at T1 speeds from my
other people are
house
lagging
in Jersey.
And
Yeah, literally. I'm like, oh, you guys don't have a T1 line? What are you crazy?
You're kicking ass on Call of Duty.
This was not dial-up. Beep, beep, beep. Dial-up I had quickly in my house, and then that went away, and the T1 line replaced it very quickly. But back then, it was very expensive to have that, but it was typically for companies to have. She had it because she had to.
So you saw inefficiencies in restaurant business and the way stuff was set up, and you thought, how can I make this better?
Well, it's not that I necessarily saw inefficiencies. I just knew how restaurants could be laid out, could work, because I worked in them. I did almost every job in a restaurant you could do, and then I was like, oh, I want to go design this. This will be fun to design restaurants. Obviously, we design restaurants today, just a little different. We do Santucci's, 4th Street cookies. We're doing Go Puff stuff. So, and then we do some one-off restaurants. We've done like a sushi spot on City Line Ave. Did some one-off restaurants down in the city. Still do that. It's a small piece of what we do, but that was the trajectory, and that's where you started. But where I really saw an inefficiency was in the architectural profession as a whole. In 2008, I was in college, and I would have professors coming in going, yeah, I just got laid off today. And at the time, there was this kick for the 3D virtual world was becoming heavier in the architectural profession with this platform called BIM, which is building information modeling, meaning that everything you put on a piece of paper can be recognized in a qualitative form, meaning like I could start understanding how much framing or drywall or flooring needs to go into these buildings, and you can start quantifying it. So I found that a lot of these firms lost a lot of their people in 2008 that just never came back, and they started needing help to bridge the gap between the new technology they needed that were sometimes being required to do the projects in. So I started fulfilling that need for a lot of architecture firms. Now fast forward, obviously we are the need. You hire us to do that stuff inherently, and provide high value to clients that are looking to save money, looking to understand quantities before it becomes a real thing. But I merged that with the virtual world, where you can see these buildings in real time before they're actually built.
That's pretty cool, because you guys have like, you were doing it before where you have like the VR headset, right? And they can like basically walk through an entire building. That's really cool.
Now the true vision is what's going to happen is, and you're already seeing blips of it, right? Apple put out their glasses, the augmented reality. Eventually you're going to be sitting at a restaurant and you're going to look over at the bar, and today you see the bottles there, but eventually you'll be able to like focus in on the label, and it pops up and gives you information. Somebody's there drinking the whiskey, right? Like, this world around us is going to change. The integration of how the physical environment is built and constructed versus how that virtual world's going to play into it. You're going to need an organization that can help you understand those two together. That's what DesignBlendz will be long term. Right now, we do a lot of it separately, right? We're going to design your building the best it can be. We're going to help you visualize things that don't exist that look like they exist. But as we continue to develop as an organization, those two are becoming ever so interconnected. I'm not trying to develop the iPhone or the Apple headset, right? I just want to be the Angry Birds app. That's what we're setting up as an organization to do.
Now, you had mentioned, you breezed past it, but you mentioned the haunted house, and that's a really cool concept. And I got to be honest with you, when you first did it, I was like, this is a big ballsy choice. Like, this could go bad, or it could be really fucking good, right? And I was like, man, I'm hoping this fucking goes really good for him, right?
Yeah, I'm glad you are. Most people want it to fucking fail.
This could be fucking bad, right? But, you bought a building on Main Street in Manayunk, an old stone building and
1860 it was completed construction.
And there was always like, bars and clubs that we grew up going to.
Sure.
And there was always like, kind of half-assed office space above and stuff like that. There was major floods that have damaged the building, numerous times throughout its life. And when you bought it, I was like, man, this dude's got balls, man. And then you did it, and now it's a major success, and I applaud you for that. But I have to say, I did have some doubts in my mind, but I was like, man, I hope he fucking does it. And can you talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, it's that whole story is lemonade out of lemons, right? So I initially didn't buy that building to do a haunted house. That would have been the last on the list of things I would have done that building. I originally bought that building because I was going to purchase it traditionally through an SBA purchase for DesignBlendz to move our offices up to the second floor. Not the first floor. I knew it flooded. I ain't that stupid. Yeah. But I was going to put the whole second floor. It would have been 9,000 square feet for our new office. Right now we have about 5,000 where we're at. So I was going to allow us to grow, build out how we wanted to, expand for growth. And we literally had the permits in hand, started some light demolition, and September happened, and it was Hurricane Ida floods. I bought the building in March prior, I didn't buy it yet. I was still, I had the owner held some paper for me until I could get it done to refinance them off. But moral of the story is that plan got derailed. The whole building was wiped out, lost elevator equipment, electrical systems, plumbing systems, the whole thing. It was fucking, it looked like a war had just happened on the whole first floor and basement of that building. It never flooded like that before. So I had to stay where I am on Main Street. So I stayed in our current location, and I easily rented out the rest of the building. I rented out the whole second floor, filled up the building, except for the first floor. And I was not sleeping. I'm calling every broker I know, from Jake Cooper to MPN. I'm like, guys, like, who's going to take this spot? I called Mad River. They don't want to come back. No one wanted to invest $200,000-$400,000 into a space that
could be wiped out
tomorrow. So everyone's like, Brian, you just got to let the stigma go away. It'll go away. Just give it time. Like, someone will come in here and take the space. I was like, I don't have fucking time. I got bank financing. I got owner financing. I got to move. I'm not sleeping. I brought in like a wedding consultant. Maybe I turn this to a wedding venue. I was like, ooh, doggy daycare. That could work. Shit, that'd be a nice thing I have on Main Street. I was like, not sleeping. Literally, I woke up one morning. I was like, fucking Jared. I literally said, I was like, fucking Jared. Jared, the little in my fraternity, we used to run every year at Philly U a haunted house. Raise money for CHOP. It was like, we all set up, the whole fraternity get together. We had like refrigerator boxes. But dude, this thing was fucking scary to the point of like, wow. Like, I can't believe we could do this at our college campus. Like, and this was fun. Neighborhood was coming. And we used to joke, Jared and I, like, dude, this would be wild to just do as a business someday.
Sure.
10 years go by. I somehow am here. I have 9,000 square feet. Vacant, just got cleaned up. Jared's off as an architect in Lehigh Valley. He designs elementary schools, like full-time architect. I was like, Jared, like, you got to come see this space. Like, I think we could do a haunted house. And he was like, well, are you crazy? You just saw this shit on.
That's a funny call to get out of the
right,
blue.
yeah.
He comes down and sees it. I go, Jared, I have the location. The location is everything here. Everyone knows where this is at. You get them into the space. It's just vacant, right? There's nothing in there. We're still doing construction. This is like December after the flood. Like,
I remember seeing.
We just got the catfish out of the fucking.
I remember seeing the photos and stuff that you're putting up.
Oh my god, it was wild. You can never imagine.
It looked like a war zone. Looked like a roadside bomb just went off.
Like literally. So I bring him down. And I'm like, Jared, let's do a haunted house. He's like, dude, you're crazy. You're fucking nuts. Like, I'm like, Jared, like the locations, everything. Like, I think this would crush. We got Eastern State. And again, I knew what I knew, but I just was like. I started, again, one of my skill sets is empathy. Like, I start just thinking of, like, in the area, like, why wouldn't you come to a haunted house in this location? You have bars, you have restaurants, you have so much nightlife. I'm like, it's different. It's never been done before in this area. I was like,
you can play off the flood, play off the 1800 building.
That wasn't even we had no even concept yet. So it was like, let's go. Jared's like, he calls me, he's like, I'm in. He's like, but if we're going to do this, Brian, we got to go to this convention in February called Transworld. I'm like, Jared, I'm not going to Transworld. He's like, no. You're coming with me to Transworld. I'm like,
we're going to Transworld.
We're going to Transworld. Transworld is the largest Halloween convention in the world. It happens every year in St. Louis. It is sick. If anyone loves Halloween, you have to go, just as even a patron to go. They have every prop, mask company, candy. Anything Halloween is there. It's awesome. We go there.
Networked.
We meet, I meet Randy Bates. We meet everybody in the industry, especially in our area. They had already kind of heard that we were starting this thing up. So we're getting, people are like just trying to, and by the way, the haunted house industry is just, the people here, I've never met such passionate people about something they just want to do. And that's the haunted house industry.
Yeah.
So small too. Like Matt Hertz, like owner of Penhurst,
and some real unique people too, right?
Oh, it's wild. It's a wild industry. So we go out there, like whatever, we're meeting people. I'm just like, fuck it. I just start swiping the Amex. Like, we're buying fucking dead bodies. We're buying props, masks. Yeah. It's like, we need a custom mask. Boom, we buy it. And I remember like one of the last days we were there, we're touring another haunted attraction in St. Louis. And the guy's like, oh, did you guys get your amusement licenses yet? I'm like, what the fuck is that? So we had to get licensed. My first year, we had to get licensed through the Department of Agriculture to run an amusement. Because it's an amusement. It's like, so the Department of Agriculture regulates this. Jared and I had to take tests. We had to study for it. We had our ID cards. Yeah. So you have to get certified every year. You have to go take a class out in Harrisburg.
You have to have, like, for, I guess, a certain amount of people that are in there, a certain amount of people working there, you probably have to have a certain amount of people, like, EMS qualified. Well, and
not even necessary. It's much more about, like, the safety of it.
Do you have to have defibrillators in place and stuff?
Not necessarily that. We have that in place. We have EMS on standby at all times. But it's all about,
like,
have heart
safety.
Attacks. I mean, knock on wood, no one's had it. We've had people hyperventilate, but we got licensed to be haunt inspectors. So we could go shut down a carnival if we wanted to. Like, literally, it's just
especially if the carnival is nearby.
Yeah, exactly. Especially the carnival's nearby. But and that was, we opened. It was a crazy. We started construction in June of 22. We were open. I got married 10/1/22, so we opened the 6th of October in 2022. It was opening night, and this year we're going on our season 3. We do off-season events. I mean, it's what's exciting for me. It's the people the patrons that are coming back. Like last weekend was opening weekend, and there was a couple that came by. They're like, Brian, we have been to every event you've had, every off-season event. The one they missed was the May the Force be with you. May the 4th be with you. It was a Star Wars theme. Like, we've been to everyone. This is fucking awesome. And I'm like,
my friend's kids, like Steve's kids, Mike's kids.
I know Steve's kids love it.
They were like, dude, they were telling me, they're like, Nick, it's scary as shit. It's so fucking scary.
That's
like,
awesome.
Yeah, it is good. And then the press, comes out. And again, the whole backstory. Jared, our operating partner, developed it. He's the evil genius behind what you see in there. I'm more just business helping him. Like, you need insurance for a haunted house? I'm your guy. I'll help you through that. But he developed the whole lore around the flood, exposed this hidden chamber, and it was determined that the former mill owner from the Great Depression era in the 1930s, Victor Kane, was experimenting on his employees. And through the story, you end up learning that he was like cutting these employees apart, turning them, stitching them into puppets, making them work for him as puppets. Like, fucked up story. Yeah. But it's like, whoa. Like, this is like, could be. So, people ask, like, is it real? And we're like, oh yeah.
Now, you guys are clearly, you're passionate about it. I mean, you could just tell, like, how you were talking about it, your facial expressions, everything. You could see you're passionate about it. Now, is it just a passion thing, or has it turned into a profitable business that sustained that location for you?
So
Great question.
So the one thing I'll get to that in a second. The one thing I want to mention about why I'm doing it too. If you go back to DesignBlendz, what I said about this virtual and physical world merging together, that's what that haunted house is.
Sure.
It's literally AI generated, the sets, the images, like it's as close as I can get to that physical and virtual world merging together, which is obviously, DesignBlendz is helping, right? We do the drawings, the permitting, right?
I'm sure it's
graphic
the most
design
technologically
stuff.
advanced fucking haunted house
Yeah,
too.
exactly. But the profitability. Look, there's still investors, right? I had to raise money for it. I have investors. I put some money in. We'll have the investors paid back shortly, hopefully.
So that's awesome.
Yeah, and that's
great.
That's
So
within 3 years.
I was just gonna say, before a 5-year business, everyone's paid back, and that's
look,
really good.
Obviously, as me
on
as
a crazy concept.
Yeah, me as a visionary looking like ahead, where, like, what's next? Where's the next location? Right? What do we do?
So there's going to be another location?
Oh yeah, we will continue to build out, Jared and I, haunted attractions around the nation.
Now, what are some things that you can do, like, other than October 31st and the time frame of that, like, where people are in the Halloween mode?
So
like,
right
what
now,
are some other things? You mentioned
right
May
now,
the 4th.
Yeah, right now we're open. I think it's 24 nights total for a year, but we do like a Valentine's. And this next year will be a little.
Literally
more.
just gonna say.
Yeah, so Valentine's we'll do a Valentine's night where he, like, changes some of the sets, the lighting he adjusts, the stories, the characters, the makeup team.
So because it doesn't become haunted as much anymore, it becomes more romantic.
It is haunted in a way, but it's like funny. It's like different.
Yeah.
We're doing Twisted Christmas again this year.
Okay.
But last year was a huge hit. People loved it, but it was like a fun scare. It was like you couldn't help but laugh seeing, like, Victor Kane dressed up as, like, the Nightmare Before Christmas. Like, it was just, there's things that he does that continues with the story. Like, he's still the lore around it. So he, like, Christmas, he developed the lore, like how Victor Kane was, like, stealing the kids' presents, right? Like, so he builds the story around the theme. Like, Valentine's Day, you meet Victor's lover that knew about the shit, right? Like, so
Pretty
every
cool.
off-season event, he does it, like, themed to that, but also interrelated back to the story, and that's been a lot of fun. So there's people that are following the story that, like, are asking him questions because and he's like, obviously he's not telling everything, but yeah, one of the goals, we're going to make a movie out of it.
Do you develop, like, a cult following of that, like, the people in that are into that genre?
Well, our staff over there, like, between that, crazy, I had someone the other day ask me, like, how many employees do you have? I was like, well, now over 100. Like, this time, like, I literally have over 100 employees that I'm dealing with for all administrative stuff right now in the middle of the haunt season.
Is Jarrett still in the Lehigh Valley?
Yeah,
or is
so he comes down.
Okay.
Yeah, so he comes down every Thursday
Yeah.
night. He's coming down this Friday. We have a massive news coming. We're going to be on. There's a show called. Oh my God! Oh no, Jared's going to kill me. The show on ABC. They do at 12 p.m. It's and they selected like 3 haunts around the nation this year to do.
Oh,
We're
wow.
one of them.
Nice.
It's impressive.
So they're coming this Friday. NBC, Fox, ABC. They're all coming this Friday to, we'll have actors and costumes and stuff, but they're on site at 6:30 to do live broadcast from Lincoln Mill, right, on the morning news.
That's awesome.
Right, so that's been,
and that's tomorrow, the 4th?
Yeah, I guess tomorrow's
October
Friday,
4th,
right?
yeah.
And this all stemmed from a real estate deal that was almost tanking, and you're laying in bed just like, what the fuck can I do to fill this space? What can I
And
do?
being resilient,
Yeah.
and not just laying down
Thinking outside the box.
thinking outside the box.
Yeah, you have to be different.
Yeah, being
You have-
persistent.
it's just, what is it?
I've always wondered, like, about that space. I'm like, how's he sustaining this? Like, is this just a passion project? Like, how's he doing this if it's like Halloween's only once a year?
I mean,
like,
it's-
is it?
it's
I
the
mean, I know
craziest-
you get lines around a block.
It's the craziest business to be in, because for 300 days you're spending money and nothing's coming in, right? So there's no different than any other business, right? Business gets paid, you spend money, paid, you spend money. And as you're just spending money, and then you're like, I have 20 nights to make all the money now.
Yeah.
It's different. It's no different. It's not $1 million business yet, but, like, yeah.
Well, it's like Christmas
significant.
villages and stuff like that. Like, people only go there like
I've
certain
never
times
been
a year.
involved in that, but it teaches you resiliency, because I can tell you the first season when I'm like, we haven't sold near enough tickets, but then you realize after talking with some of the people in the industry, like Randy Bates and Matt Herzog who owns Penhurst, right? Like, bro, like 95 of your ticket sales come within 24 hours of the day. I'm like, what? What do you mean? People aren't booking out haunted houses weeks in advance?
Yeah.
No, they're not. They're like, shit, what do you want to do tonight? Let's go to Lincoln Mill. Right? Like, duh. Like, it's just stuff you learn as you go through that helps put things at ease. But yeah, like.
How has the Main Street Business Association, how has the neighborhood, how has that taken to it?
When I say one sentence, we'll bring more people on a Saturday than we have tables in Manayunk.
Okay. So they're happy.
They're
happy.
through the roof.
Well, but when you first pitched it, were they like, "What?
Well,
wait a minute."
Not wait.
A lot of
wait
those neighbors, a lot of those neighbors and those associations down there are very hesitant to change.
I think, again, I also had to deal with the stigma of what was there previously, right? You have kids coming out of a bar throwing up in their planter boxes, fighting, right? So like, oh, they're gonna run this haunted house. It's not gonna be organized, but again, we run it as a production, right? We have armed security, we have security, we have fire safety, we have wardrobe, makeup, 50 scare actors. Like, it's a production every night. So we're running it as it's a Broadway show, just about. Like, it's literally people on headsets talking. All right, a door's open, boom, like, change the line, cue number. Like, it is a show.
The city's probably making a ton of money just on parking.
Yeah, I mean, thousands of people.
The municipal lot that's there and all that stuff. Like, they're coming in, hour parking, going. What's the average person there for? An hour, 2 hours?
Yeah, average time on site's about an hour and 15
minutes. And then
minutes.
they go stroll Main Street, buy some stuff, and then they leave.
And we bring in other local business. We have like Boardroom Spirits this year as a sponsor and vendor. New Ridge Brewing, sponsor and vendor. We bring in like Psychic Monica. She's on Main Street. We bring in Funnel Cake, Fried Oreos.
The Psychic is great.
Yeah,
it goes right. Yeah,
yeah, right.
Nice.
So what else? Some of the local businesses like Benny's Pizza sponsors this year. They have on our ticket bring this and get $1 off a slice, right? So the engagement's been great because our PR that goes out is, we have a TikTok right now. It's at 1 million. It's at 1 million views. That's just awesome. from our on-site training day, right? So it's like. The amount of push that we're doing, an impact that's going out there, there's billboards already going up. There's one on Main Street, a billboard of ours right now. That's awesome. It just went up when you're coming down Main Street heading towards Manayunk from where it splits at Ridge.
So what is next for you? Not just in a haunted house. What's next for you in life? What's next for you in business?
I think I look at life in a weird way. Not necessarily weird. I don't know if to me, I think it's the right way. But I look at it in pillars. I look at my career, my relationships, my spirituality, and my health. I think my relationships and health is going to be a much bigger focus moving forward. Building family, building that sort of piece of sex. I took my career pillar and I accelerated it more than people can sometimes wish in their lifetimes. Right?
Absolutely.
But it's also like,
it's weird to say, isn't it?
It's crazy, but it's like it'll go like this. If I don't build the other stuff right. And I think that's, for me, the next couple of years is focusing on the relationships and building better relationships and building a family, right? Like that's definitely what's next for me. Look, entrepreneurship, it's not a job for me, right? I love what I do.
Sure.
I get up Monday, I'm giddy to get to the office to start sharing visions with people.
It's clear and apparent.
And that will always be there for me. So, but it's like, I got to take time, breathe, be like, whew. What do I want to do? And I've never been in that type of position before, but what I do know is whatever I do, I want to make sure that I'm bringing others with me. And that's something that took me a while to figure out, making sure not only bringing others with me from partnerships, but also the teams I'm building in those businesses. Like, how do you help create a framework for people to achieve? And how do I give pay raises every year to my staff, right? Those are the impacts that makes exciting for me to be part of.
So two more questions and we'll wrap this up. Number one, what are you doing health-wise, mental-wise to prepare you for entrepreneurship and everything that you're doing? Like what are some of your health and wellness schedules that you're doing?
Yep. So one of the biggest things is I've always been I've been a type 1 diabetic. I wear an insulin pump. I've been a type 1 diabetic since I was in 7th grade. This year, within the last 12 months, there's finally a piece of technology out that makes it as though I have an artificial pancreas. It's like it works. I wear a sensor that interconnects with a pump, so literally my blood sugars have changed, which I'm down like 40 pounds. I've focused a lot on portion control, and I'm eating what I'm eating, how much I'm eating, right? So some of that's been good. I'd like to work out more. I don't work out near enough. The problem is when I work out, I can't sleep because the energy levels I get from working out is through the fucking roof.
What about first thing in the morning?
It doesn't matter.
Really?
It's that level. And I don't know what that's from. I've read about it. I put oils on my feet, try to like
that happens
calm
to me
down.
sometimes,
but like
doing legs.
It's especially to a point where I don't sleep.
Have you tried? What helps for me with sleeping is I've changed my regimen to do. I like doing my sauna at nighttime, and then I'll take my sauna and the kids are in bed. Yeah. My wife's reading her book or in bed. I do the sauna, and then it forces me to slow my mind down. Right, yeah. It's outside. It's in dark. Then I go inside and I I go in a shower. It's completely dark. And I sit there and I just kind of meditate for 5 minutes, and then that calms me down. I am falling asleep in the shower basically before I get into bed.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
I mean, it's good to have a ritual, regardless of what it is, too. Just something that you do every night.
And then I do the cold in the mornings, and that is like, I don't drink coffee, I don't do energy drinks, anything like that. I do the cold plunge in the morning, and dude, that is like methamphetamine at 5 a.m.
You have cold plunge outside?
Yeah.
You just drop in? That's cool.
And what I like about it the most, whether the medical studies are wrong on it or anything like that, for me, it's the mental aspect of it. Yep. It's, I wake up, and my wife will, either me or her make the bed, right? Mm-hmm. So it's first thing, you accomplish something. And then I go out and I go into the cold plunge. And as you're walking down the steps, your brain is telling you, this voice in the back of your head that we all have, and I like to call it just like beating that inner pussy out of your mind, and it's telling you to quit. It's saying, you don't need to do this right now. Do it tomorrow. Fuck it. You don't need to do it. And then when you're out there and you get into it, your brain is playing tricks on you. It's like when this bird flies past this, just get out. And then the 3 to 5 minute timer goes off, and it's this such sense of accomplishment. You're like, fucking right. I beat him again.
What time you get up and what time you go to bed?
That's different because I have kids. So if they're sick, sometimes I'm up at 4 a.m. Sometimes I'm up at 6 a.m. So it's. I don't sleep in on Sundays. I sleep in past 7, but I'm regimented in that. I'm in the gym every single morning. Like my legs are killing me right now from beating the shit out of myself. And jiu-jitsu has helped me a lot too. I do that a lot. So my next question for you is: everybody wants to talk about their successes and Instagram highlight reels and all that stuff. Can you talk about a failure to us in business and what you learned from it and what the lesson you learned that was great from that failure?
A failure?
Sure.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I feel like I fail every day.
Yeah.
I think one of the biggest failures early on was not hiring the right people.
Okay.
And thinking that I could get people to be what I needed them to be. A lot of people, when you're hiring, say if you're like, I could make them do that, or they could grow to be this director of whatever. They could become this person, and not necessarily investing in what would allow that to happen. So for example, like right now, I just joined a program called Vistage. It's a global company. It's 30,000 exec CEOs, but I'm in it learning with other CEOs that are much bigger than me, teaching me how to run a 500 person or 1,000 person company. Right. Then there's also like Scott Woodruff, who's my current COO. Like him and I joke, like, we can't run a 1,000 person company. We need to like level ourselves up. So it's like getting him the proper education so he doesn't get left behind. Right. So he can learn to be a better COO for a 100, 500,000 person company that we're building. Right. So the biggest challenge is, if I had hired the right people for the right things earlier on, I'd be much further ahead than where I am.
And not expected too much from certain people.
And thinking like, oh, I could hire this person that knows construction, but like, can't deal with people properly, and like, you know what I mean. So that was the biggest learning lesson. And honestly, you learn through fucking when you have to pay money.
Sure.
Right? I've lost millions by hiring the wrong people. Millions.
We talked about this the other day on the phone, and you were like, "Damn, that's deep." I said, "You have to expect people to be themselves. Correct. You have to expect people to disappoint you and
to be who they are.
To be who they are and be true to themselves."
And again, it's also like, in the beginning too, it's hard in business because I didn't have the resources to go hire a director of construction from Domus, right? That pay $200,000 a year to. I had to make do with what I had.
Sure.
Right. Or that's the biggest challenge. But I think the moment you start realizing that you figure it out. Like I wish I didn't use that as an excuse. I wish I figured out how to go hire that person from Domus, or do something a little different than what I had traditionally done, because I would have been that much further ahead. But yeah, making sure that you have the right people in the right roles. I wish I focused on that much earlier in business.
Now, how can people get a hold of you, and give us a little brief description of your podcast that you do?
Cool. Yeah. So first, they can get a hold of me on Instagram's honestly the best. Instagram has the best way of sorting new people.
It really does.
It's so simple too.
It really does.
But Instagram, just at Corcodilos, CORCODILOS. You'll find me on Instagram. That's the best way.
What is DesignBlendz Instagram?
It's just at DesignBlendz, DesignBlendz on Instagram. But yeah, get a hold. Mainly through, if you want me personally, get through there. If you need the DesignBlendz, you want to chat, need help on physical and virtual world, they'll take care of you.
What's the haunted house?
At Lincoln Mill Haunt.
And then tell us about your podcast.
Yeah, sure. So I run a podcast. It's called the New How Podcast. I bring people on, other entrepreneurs that literally started from nothing and become relatable to the common person, right? A lot of these podcasts, you go, like, I love the Joe Rogan podcast, but you go on there, you're like, shit, I'll never be like that person. How could I become that person, right? I try to bring on people that literally, like one of the guys I had on, I'm about to release episodes, this guy Alan Borgovich, he's a good client, but he thought he was going into the NBA. His trajectory was basketball, but then he got into real estate development, right? It's like, so I want to bring on people that are doing things in a different way. That I've also brought in somebody that got fired from Comcast in 2008 and started the largest in-home healthcare company in the area, right? Like, those are the people I need people to understand and relate to. So that's what we do on a podcast. It's not necessarily so focused on real estate or it's generalized to just entrepreneurs and other operators that started from a trajectory that they thought they were going to pursue and just totally altered course and went elsewhere.
And you're doing the in-person on video.
Yeah, in-person on video. We typically release an episode every 2 to 3 weeks right now. We have a backlog. We have one going out hopefully on Monday again. But yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
Cool.
Great.
Meeting other, chopping it up like this.
That's awesome. I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for having me.
This has been great. Thank you, everyone. I think that's a wrap.
This episode is being sponsored by Milady Landscaping. They're a full-service, year-round landscaping company and landscaping design. They have hardscaping available with patios, fire pits, and more. They do free estimates. You can contact them today at miladylandscaping.com or 267-836-2102 or on Instagram at Milady Landscaping. Milady Landscaping does all of my personal and investment properties, and I cannot say enough good things about them. I would not put my own stamp on a company that I don't trust 100%, and there's nobody in the landscaping, hardscaping business that I trust more than Milady Landscaping.
If you enjoyed our episode, please consider supporting the show by rating and reviewing the podcast. Also, check us out on Instagram at Atomic Real Estate Show to find out when new shows drop and to participate in our community Q&As. The Atomic Real Estate Show was brought to you by Direct Subs. Direct Subs is the #1 place for real estate investors to connect with local contractors for their flips, rentals, renovations, and new construction projects.